Hello everyone, my name is Isabel Smith and this is my final speech presentation. The Watergate dominated the news media for months after the initial break-in and bug-in of the political Democratic National Headquarters of Washington. 5 men were held in plot to bug offices here, said the headline news of the bottom of page 1 of the Washington Post. These prowlers were associated with Richard Nixon's re-election campaign, and they were caught wiretapping phones and stealing secret documents to help Richard Nixon win his re-election in 1972. In fact, ongoing investigation was also necessary to discover facts involving President Nixon and his attempted cover-up of illegal activities, which resulted in his resignation in 1974. Most mistrust Americans feel towards the government today can be traced back to the Watergate scandal, which resulted in the resignation of an American president. What was the Watergate scandal? Well, it was bugging the political opponents' offices. The first ever heard of an entry into the Watergate building was back in late April 1972. 5 men were held and apprehended at the Democratic National Headquarters of the Watergate building. What did the president know? When did he know it? And why did the president stoop so low as to cover up the scandal if he was innocent? On October 10th, 1972, it was finally proven that the attempted sabotage was indeed paid by Nixon's organization. And he also brought down the government with his lies. Stealing secret documents is another serious offense. It's defined as material a government body claims as sensitive information that requires protection of confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Stealing is such a serious offense, so why didn't Richard Nixon get indicted, even though he was the one that orchestrated the whole cover-up, which is a conspiracy in a huge way? Photographing sensitive campaign documents became mysterious and intriguing. The raids were led by a group named the Plumbers, because they were searchers for leaks. Now, if the plumbers would have gated the water better, we would have never had a shortage of water. It also became a constitutional crisis. A constitutional crisis often results in the break-in of the orderly operation between different branches of the government. Events were a reflection of our social and national environment, political environment. Congressional investigator also demanded privileged White House documents and tape recordings held in the president's private office. Impeachment of a president was rendered and considered. The outcome of the Watergate scandal was huge and is the leading cause why Americans mistrust the government so much. So how does the Watergate scandal affect the U.S. today? Well, it shaped how Americans view politicians today. Knowing that the leader of our country deceived our government and the American people doesn't give us much hope for the future. To err is human, but it really takes a politician to screw things up. Do these elected officials really represent the American people, or are they just out for themselves? It dragged the nation into a deep national depression. How do Americans perceive the government today? Giving money and power to the government is like giving car keys and whiskey to teenage boys. The national mood and trust of the government are up from the mid-1990s, but still only 20% are satisfied, and 34% basically trust the government. The majority of the American people have very little faith. They mistrust, misgiving, very skeptical, and this is why Americans have such a suspicious nature towards the government. It changed American politics forever. The Watergate scandal was the main cause for new laws with extensive changes in campaign funding. For example, although not legally required, personal disclosure became expected of income tax returns. Now, since the Watergate left such an impression, most scandals were labeled White Watergate, Rathergate, Zippergate, Filegate, and Contragate. In general, the Watergate scandal involved a number of illegal activities that was designed to help Richard Nixon win his re-election. Although many people expressed relief and were exhilarated to get rid of Richard Nixon, although he lost all his popularity vote with the American people during his re-election, there was still more lasting damage. The Watergate scandal was associated with burglary, wiretapping phones, and was Nixon's fall of power. There was 5 men in his organizations. 3 of them were Cuban exiles. 1 was a Cuban American. The 5th one was James W. McCord, Jr., and he was a former CIA agent. They were all arrested for this crime. The Watergate had a huge impact with Americans and is the leading cause for the distrust of the government. Most Americans scarcely even imagined such a scandal even existed until the Watergate. It had such a huge impact, it became controversial, contradictory, and compelling. Thank you. That's the end of my presentation.